So our template file is now ready. How do we work with it? Because obviously we don't have HTML application here. We are working with the PHP application that we actually trying to build. So the first thing to do is obviously we've got a lot of HTML code which we will need to reuse on every page. Like for instance this header, this structural elements. If we were to use just a pure HTML, we would have to copy everything to the next file, basically, meaning that if I need to change anything, say even the path for the Google Fonts, I would have to change it in every single file. And again, as you may remember, duplication in any coding environment is just evil. So what we need to do is to be able to reuse elements such as heading, all the structural elements as well, wrappers, footer, and so on. And the easiest way to do it, and we have seen this already in action, is to use either require, include, require once, or include once. So what we're going to do is, let's first think about which element will not change within our structure. So I'm sure this part, before the opening body tag, is not going to change. Obviously, we may change the title, and if we have meta description tag as well, we can change this for each page. But pretty much apart from this, this whole thing is going to stay the same. Then, the beginning of this structure of our page, basically, the wrapper, the pre-header, the header wrapper, that's all there as well with the logo and everything. Slide is on a home page, so that's probably one of the things that will also have to be included, but only on a certain page. Then content, obviously, whatever is in between the opening closing div with this class column is going to change on every page, but not this part. This part is going to be the same on every page. And then obviously this part, these divs and section tags will also be the same, and so will this footer. So what I'm going to do is slice it first into header and footer. So whatever comes before the content and whatever comes after the content of the given page. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to close this images directory here, and we are going to create a new directory, call it partials. You can call it template or anything else you want, but I'm going to call it partials. So partials, there we go. And inside of this directory, I'm going to create a new PHP file called header.php. There we go. So we've got header.php, and it starts with the opening PHP tag. We don't need this opening PHP tag. We only need the blank file at the moment. So what I'm going to copy first, I'm going to start with this doc type ending at the beginning of the body tag. So I'm just going to cut this and paste it inside of this header. After that, what I need is to have a look at how far I need to cut. We are going to cut this wrapper. So starting at the beginning of this section tag, we're going down to the header. We definitely need the whole header. So I'm just going to collapse it actually, so I know exactly where I am. Let's collapse these sections again. So we need all this, including the content, down to the line with this column. So you see this content opening section tag, then we have raw, then we have column. So all this together with this column, opening column tag, we are going to cut all this and paste it after this body tag inside of the header.php. So now we have all this inside of the header. Okay, that's good. Now the remaining bits are going in the footer. So everything that's left, let's cut it and create a new partial, call it footer.php, and let's paste it all here. There we go. So this is our footer. Now our template file is completely redundant, so we can remove it. Obviously, we won't be able to access template.html anymore, but that wasn't the case anyway. We didn't need it in the first place. Okay, so now our header and footer are split into two different files. Let's go to our index.php file, and what I'm going to do, just to start with, I'm going to require once, because I only need this file once on the page, and I'm not going to be using brackets this time surrounding the argument, because obviously it's a language construct, as you may remember. We can either put the path directly after require once, after the space, or use the brackets, but I'm going to do it without the brackets this time. So when we want to point, we want to call to partial, go to partials, and then / we want the header first. Yes, so we have header.php, and then if I duplicate this line, by the way, duplicating lines in PHP Storm, it's on the Mac, it's Command with letter D. On Windows, I presume it's going to be Control with letter D. Give it a try and see if it's going to duplicate the line. Again, you don't really want to do something like this, select the entire line, then do it, because that's going to put it next to it rather than underneath. You just need your cursor anywhere, even at the end of this line or anywhere in between, and then you can just hit the shortcut basically, and that should pretty much copy the line. Okay, so next file we need is the footer.php. And if I save it now, if we go back to our browser, now rather than template.html, let's just go directly to our php course.dev, and there you go. Here's our file, including the header together with the slider and the footer. Obviously, we don't have any content in between, but we are now fetching the content from the include files. So if you go back to the editor, now all that is fine, and for the time being we're going to leave it like this, but now let's go back to the header. Footer will pretty much stay this way. We will just do a slight change to it later on, so don't worry for now. Let's just close it. Header, now header's got quite a few sections. We could probably slice it a little bit further. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the pre-header, although we could put these social buttons into a separate partial as well, but not quite needed. I think we're okay here. It doesn't take that much space. So I'm going to collapse this one. Then for the header, however, because these navigations can expand, I would probably want to put them in a separate file. So I'm going to cut the entire content starting with the navigation, this drop-in navigation div, and then the whole form. I'm going to take them both, so cut it off, and I'm going to create a new partial, and I'm going to call it navigation. Give it some descriptive names, basic, so you know straight away what they contain. So now we have navigation in a separate file. What we need to do is go back to the header, and now we need to require once. Now, because we are in between the HTML tags, we need to start with the PHP tag in between, and then we going to need the closing tag after our whatever we're gonna put in between. So we want to require once, and what we want to require once, this time I'm going to use brackets. Again, you don't have to, entirely up to you, but I tend to do it this way. When I'm in between the HTML tags, I use the brackets. When I'm outside of it, if it's only like index.php here, you can see we don't use any HTML, it's just a pure PHP code. Sometimes I use brackets, sometimes not. But in between the code, HTML code, I tend to use the brackets. Again, absolutely up to you how you want to do it. So require once, and what I want to do is, again, partials / navigation. Now, if I save it, preview everything in the browser, refresh the page, as you can see, we still have navigation in place, although now it's fetched from a separate file. Now, another thing I wanted to show you, if I was to remove these partials and use just the navigation, save it and preview it in the browser, it still works. And do you know why? Well, if I just quickly go to the browser, and if we quickly have a look at where this header.php is located, you will see that it's inside of the partials. And where is this navigation.php included? It's also inside of this partial. So this file, this header.php, has direct access to the navigation. We don't need to put partials again. We can just call it straight away because it's next to this file. It's not within any other directory. But because these files are included from within the index.html, which is outside of the partials directory, sometimes, not always, sometimes it is recommended to actually use the path to make sure that obviously the file which includes them knows exactly where they are. But for this specific, if I just use it here, for this specific example, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Let's keep it, let's stick with the partials for the time being anyway. Okay, so we've got our navigation now included. So now our header wrapper is a little bit slimmer as well. So we can collapse this one. Logo can stay here. It doesn't matter. It can stay in the header directly. Then we have this slider. Now, slider is only for the home page. Do we need to have it in a header then? Well, probably not. So what I'm going to do is cut the entire slider. So starting with this opening section tag and a closing section tag. And now create a partial for a slider. There we go. And paste it inside of this file. Next thing, we obviously need to require this file. So PHP require once, and then I'm going to use brackets again, and I'm going to go for partials and then slider.php. Semicolon and closing PHP tag. If we save it, preview it in the browser, refresh the page, still works, so everything works just fine. But now we've got the structure a little bit slimmer, so if you go to the header, you can see less of a code because it's inside of the separate files, which you can basically deal with directly when you go to this file. So makes it easy as well to deal, let's say, with this slideshow rather than having all this code surrounding, obviously, the slideshow itself. So now that we've sliced it all, let me just check if there's anything else. I think that's it. We've got a content here which will be used within the other files. I think we're ready to move to the next video.